Hey, hello everyone, welcome. This is Alicia Brasher here at Cosmic Gateway, and I'm incredibly excited to bring on my next guest. I have with me Jason Gleaves, who is a ufologist. He's a researcher and an international author, and obviously has a background in the Air Force. So welcome, welcome Jason. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm really excited to get into talking about, how it came about that, how did you get into ufology and the work that you do and current projects that you're working on. So thank you and welcome.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. It's my pleasure to be on your show. I suppose my story of ufology goes back to my childhood, like most people, when I had a sighting with my sister when I was age 7 years old in Liverpool in England, and it was near Aintree Racecourse. I don't know if many of your listeners probably know the famous race in the UK we have every year. Yeah, we were basically, I was 7 years old, my sister was 8. We were playing upstairs in a relative's house in Aintree, and we both saw a disc-shaped object appear outside the window. I think we both looked at it and wondered what it was, and like kids do, what's that, and then this thing took off, and then we just carried on playing like nothing had happened. And I'd actually forgotten about it, completely forgotten about it, that it happened. And it was only later when I got into ufology again in more detail and, digging more deep into it, that my sister came up with it and said, do you remember when we saw that UFO outside the window, And I said, no, we had completely forgotten. And it slowly came back, and it's like a missing memory or something, I don't know. But that's basically where it started for me.
And, how long later did you retrieve that memory, or when your sister reminded you? Was that sort of 20 years old?
That was probably 2014. It wasn't that long ago.
Right.
And it was really when I was starting to go into this in more depth, and digging more and more. And this is one of the many memories that sort of came from that, all through my life, there's been odd things happen, like most people, and you can't really put things to it. And later on, you can do, and I can more because of ufology and other, disciplines that I've brought in, and I can sort of understand what happened, or whatever. And then obviously I joined the Air Force, and I was on the base at RAF Cosford in near Birmingham, which was central UK, and it was during March 1993, not long after the first Gulf War, I think it was, and basically a huge triangular-shaped craft came down over the base, over the airfield. I was on the base. My friend was the orderly corporal in the guard room, and this was late night, very late night, early hours of the morning. And there was a young airman, and RAF Cosford is a training camp, so that's where they train armourers and things like that. So I was there as permanent staff, and there was a young airman on the airfield guard post itself, which is overlapped. There's a big museum at Cosford as well, so if anybody ever goes there, it's quite well known for that. And long story short, this young lad trainee was on the guard post, and in the guard room they were getting messages from this young lad. He was in distress, saying, quick, get the guard commander out over the airbase, over the airfield, because there was a huge triangular shaped craft over the base, hovering over the base. It's all on the internet, anyone can look it up, it's all there. Anyone can look this information up. Basically the guard commander and the RAF police and, other guards got in the Sherpas and Land Rovers and all drove out to the guard post. And this thing took off. It was described by the people that saw it that it was the size of a battleship. It was huge, this thing. But it was seen throughout the UK, or a craft of similar description was seen throughout the UK by on-duty policemen and other members of the public that evening. And then it went on from there. It flew to another RAF base, which was nearby, which is RAF Shawbury. And the on-duty air traffic controller saw it coming in with the lock. Whether it was the same craft or object, it was certainly of the same description, and it was seen firing very thin laser beams down towards the ground, and the impression the air traffic controller got was that it was actually looking for something. So it's all on the line. You can actually find all this information out, and I actually wrote about it in my first book, and I think afterwards Nick Pope, the MOD, got involved and was investigating it and everything. So, just one of the many things.
Oh, I'm sure you've got some incredible stories. I do have a question though. Who do you think was operating that craft? Do you think that was, do you think that was ET being, like galactic beings, or do you think that was military?
It's over the years, the more I've thought about it, and different arguments have come up, of possibly, the origins of the craft, or it was certainly nothing we had. We had Tornadoes and Harriers and Jaguars, that type of an aircraft, helicopters. We didn't have anything like that, anti-gravity craft, which it was. It was probably the TR-3B, which is, publicised and seen. And during the 90s, it was seen, especially with the Belgian wave, where it was seen, and the Belgian Air Force actually broadcast, one of their aircraft followed a triangle-shaped craft, and it was all brought out. I would probably lead more towards it being secret covert in origin. Whether it's in league with ETs, I don't know, because I really don't know.
Yeah.
But if I had to say, I would say, it was probably a man-made ET human craft.
Yeah. Reverse. Yeah. Interesting. And how common in the line of research and work that you do, how common is it to have these sightings at various different Air Force bases or Navy bases across the world?
It's quite common. It's you can go back to Salas and people like that in the States who had UFOs over nuclear bases, nuclear silos. Then craft and pilots have reported these things for many years, and reports have been leaked, through the released documents from the MOD. And it's been, they're there, you can see them, and these are trained people, trained observers, they're trained to see their environment, to act the way they are, what's happening, combat, whatever. And they didn't know what the aircraft were or the objects were. And then you've got the recent release to the Stars Academy, haven't you, in the US with Tom DeLonge, and where they've released the gun footage from the Nimitz, is it, the aircraft carrier. So I think military's had a big hand in it. It also have a big hand in the release of it as well, which I believe is happening as well, the slow release of information.
Yeah.
Like the drip feed effect, I really think the military aircraft and the secret covert have had links, certain places. But then you've got civilian aircraft, civilian airports, and passenger aircraft that have pilots who have reported UFOs. There's one that's in, I think I wrote about in the second book in '95, coming into Manchester Airport, which is not that far away from here. And the pilots were coming in from Milan to the UK on a flight, and I think they were about 13,000 feet up, and UFO buzzed, which was a triangle-shaped craft again, buzzed the passenger aircraft, and they thought it was going to hit them. And I've got all the reports from British Airways, from the MOD, where it went to the civilian aviation. Everything's there. And again, why would our aircraft do that? Why would our pilots deliberately, fly at another aircraft? It's to be seen. It's got to be seen. And then there's a brilliant case where I covered an Argentinian civilian pilot. He was buzzed by 2 aircraft. And if you go on my YouTube channel, the video's on there. I've actually had it on Paranormal caught on camera in the States, and the Japanese TV company have taken it as well. And I did actually analyse the photographs in my book. But if you can go on it, anyone can look at it. It's free to look at all these things. The video is there, the Argentinian. And basically, he was flying along. He'd seen UFOs before, but never had a camera or anything with him. This was about 2014. And he knew he was going to see something else. So he had his mobile phone on him, which 2014, the cameras were okay, but they're not like today, with 4K and things like that, And you can see it, he's filming forwards, you can see the cockpit, you can see the propeller, you see the cloud base, very clear. And 2 objects come right in from his left-hand side and buzz right in front of his cockpit. And then they fly to the right-hand side where he watches them go into a tight formation, and then he comes back from the right in formation and buzzes his aircraft again. So again, no civilian or military pilot will do that. If they did it once, it's a severe mistake, but they certainly wouldn't do it twice.
Right.
And I still think to this day it's probably the best piece of footage out there.
I haven't seen it myself, but I'll have to go back and look at it to watch it. But for all those who are watching, I will put all the links down in the description box below, where you can go to Jason's YouTube channel and all his social medias, so you can go and have a look at this incredible footage by the sounds of how you've described it. And I think it's great that there's people like yourself that are putting this out there. I guess it kind of helps putting it out into the collective consciousness to get people prepared, because as you said, that there's this drip feed of disclosure that's happening that can be really frustrating for a lot of us. But you can kind of understand that it's a lot for the average person to comprehend. So when people like yourself are doing amazing work and research and, analyzing, the footage and things like that to show people, which is absolutely magnificent. So many questions are going around in my head right now. But let's talk about the categories, because I find that really fascinating. And I know you've put that in was it your first book or second book?
Second book, yeah. Yeah, the first book was, as people probably know, I analyse photographs of people all around the world. People contact me, and I try and sift out. I mean, I've got a vast knowledge of aircraft, so I do know what military aircraft look like and what civilian aircraft look like, and also the tricks of the eye, the weather. You've got birds, insects, you can go into all kinds of things that people think they're seeing something, and there's a perfectly good explanation to what they're seeing. I'm not calling anybody a liar or anything, but if it is what it is, then I will tell them, you know. I wouldn't sugarcoat it for them. And I'd like to think somebody would do the same for me if that was the case. So that's probably why I'm like that. But that was the first book. The first book was basically showing people how I analyze photographs, how I go into depth and explain how I analyze them, going through, you know, the different stages, you know, of the photographs. You know, the first stage, you always try and get the best original photograph you can of the UFO or, you know, object in the scenery, because basically, sorry about that, the printer's just right, there you go. And yeah, and people basically, if you can get the original first photograph, it's always the best, because that's the best to work with. If you're posting this photograph and it's going around, say I post it to you, you're getting the second generation. You post it to somebody else, they're getting the third generation. And each time it deteriorates and you're losing a bit of detail and, you know, basic stuff, you know. And then I go into Photoshop, and I don't use Photoshop like people would think, where I change something. It's there basically to use the filters. So, you know, I'm looking for the inverted, where you can invert it like a negative photograph, so you can see, you can highlight the brightness and contrast and everything. And it's amazing the detail you can actually bring out by doing that. And then also overlaying different photographs, it brings up like a 3D image. So again, it's just basic things, but it does the job. And then the second book, really, I was being asked more and more questions about close encounters. And obviously everybody knows about Close Encounters of the Third Kind because of Spielberg's movie.
Yeah.
And then you've got Dr. Hynek, who actually, you know, went through, and we've got the Close Encounters of the First Kind, Second Kind. The Third Kind was the movie, which he was reluctant to actually bring a third kind out. But since then, with things, as you quite know and your audience know, you know, there's hybrids, there's all kinds of things, abductions that have come into play, and it now goes up to CE7. So you've got 1 to 7 different categories. So CE5 is basically a sighting. You know, you visually see something, or, you know, a saucer, or, you know, anything, you know, modern day tech, that type of thing. CE2 is where a witness, somebody's actually witnessed a UFO. So again, you've got to remember that also with these categories, they mingle together. So you might have a sighting that's it's got 1, 5, and 7 in. You know what I mean? It's not basically 1, 2, 3. You could have all of them in the sighting. I wouldn't like it if you did have all of them, but you could have them.
Yeah, I think it's really great though to break it down for I guess newer people coming into this or having experiences. I think the human mind likes sort of to compartmentalize or categorize, you know, what is this, what's happening. Yeah, so it's great. Sorry, continue. Yeah.
No, it's all right. And you know, again, it's basically people have asked me, and I, you know, be selfish. I wanted to know all this. I mean, I've been in the same boat that other people are starting to jump on to this journey that I've gone through, and I'm still on it, and you are, you know. But people are coming in all the time and asking the basic questions like we did, which we didn't know the answers. But if somebody's got a guide for them to go a bit further, then that's great, you know, in the form of a book. I call it the Richard Drayford syndrome, you know, the character out of Close Encounters, where, you know, he goes nuts trying to find out why he's been, you know, had the sighting, and he doesn't know why. And it's the same with everybody else that comes into this field, you know, or, you know, they're basically looking for books, videos, YouTube's great, there's a lot of things on there, good and bad, but there's still a lot of really good things, a lot of good Facebook pages where there's people in the same boat. And basically this is where it sort of stemmed from, and I wanted to get it on paper and then put cases to it. So where were we up to? CE2, which is witnessed, where you witness a UFO. That could be like crop circles as well, terrain, anything like that. That's linked to that type of thing. You've got mutilated animals, that comes under 2. Livestock, you've got mechanical failure. So if you've had a sighting, a bit like Betty Barney Hill say, the car conks out on them, you've had a mechanical interaction, a failure. Again, this is so big, they're so big, the actual categories. That's what I'm saying to you, that they could literally cover quite a bit, and then you've got also where your body, you can have body seizures, that type of thing, where you're having an interaction, a physical occurrence, that type of thing. And then you've got C3, so close encounters of the third kind, which is again a visual. So it's basically, that one is where you've actually a confirmation of a visual. So the other could be an image on a photograph or something. This could be you've actually physically seen it, witnessed something. So it's a confirmation of it, an object. C4 is a human abduction. Again, this is a later one, but wasn't initially, because a lot of people have been abducted, and interactions with ETs and beings, different types of visitation. So it's not necessarily being taken on board a craft. It just means you're in the custody of an ET, whether you're at home or again. So again, it's quite an open field, but category, I should say. C5 is, sorry.
I have a question about that, because obviously it's quite vast, but having contact with a extraterrestrial or coming into the presence, that is in a physical capacity, or does that incorporate sort of more multi-dimensional facets, or does that go into the other categories?
It always has. It always has incorporated more than when I sort of got into this. I thought a lot of UFOs and things that you see, it wasn't necessarily real unless it was nuts and bolts and it was physical and you could see it. And again, how wrong were we? Because now we're thinking outside the box, where it's multi-dimensional, not even in the same dimension as us, they're probably existing in the same space as us right now. But, a good way to explain that is see yourself as a radio, and you can pick up all the different radio stations, and there's thousands of them all going around you at once, but you can actually tune into the frequency of one channel, one station, and that's what you're doing. You're tuning into a dimension on the realms of that being, and there are other beings as well in their dimensions in the same space. This is where it gets people, the heads explode, because
it takes a while to get your head around.
Yeah. And especially when I've been dealing more with Peter Slattery, the stuff he's, the way I've come across Peter, over the years, it's through Mary Rodwell first, and again it was through seeing him being hypnotized by Mary, going through the regression. It was just part of my journey that we sort of crossed paths, and then I started to analyze his photographs and thinking, bloody hell, this is the real deal. This, some of the things I was getting, not even from him, the beings, the ships, the the dimension ships that were morphing, and it's just, when he contacts me, I know something is going to be good. It's going to be a really good one. There's a good one in related to this new documentary we're doing together. It'll be out later this year.
I'm
There's
looking forward to that
Mary
one.
Rodwell's in that.
Oh,
James Gilliland.
all my favorites.
John. Yeah, I've seen it already, and I was taken back because I thought it was exactly what people are thinking and talking about today. But it's got craft in there that I've analysed for Pete, of discs. There's all kinds. There's the ETs in there. The last one we were talking, and he said he could hear footprints on the roof where we were talking, and he went outside, took a photograph, and there was an ET behind the van. His van parked up outside. That's actually got in there when I analysed that for him. But then there was the other piece of footage I analysed where he set up a camera in his house, and you can see a grey peeking around the corner at him like that and keeps going back. But then I actually, one step above what Pete was doing, I actually overlaid a frame from the photograph onto the film footage, and it was basically the same being. So it was in two separate, that he's got.
Wow.
He's just really, really good. He's become a real good friend as well, just basically through the journey, and we've crossed paths, together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have to
Where
say,
were we on the scene?
I just have to say, he's been sort of instrumental. Looking back at my own journey, I met back in 2014. It's funny, that year must have been something going on, because it really was. I got home. I was overseas. I was in South America, and I got home, and my dad calls me up. He goes, "What are you doing tonight?" I was like, "Oh, I don't know, getting over jet lag." And he said, "Do you want to come on Skywatch?" And I was like, "Skywatch? What?" He's like, "Oh, there's this guy, and he's going to take a group out to go look at UFOs." I was like, "Yeah, cool." And and so we went down and met Pete, and there was a group of people, and that was sort of, I wouldn't say that was my first, but it was instrumental for me, because it really opened me up to, wow, okay, and meeting other experiences and stuff like that. And it was almost exactly a year when my experiences went to so it was yeah. And so I can kind of look back and go, that was so divinely orchestrated, because I had a bit more context at that point. I was never a disbeliever. I've had experiences since I was a kid, but it started to put things in, so, when you talk about the likes of Peter Slattery and Mary Rodwell, they've all been very instrumental for my journey, but I think for a lot of people's journeys. So, it's so great to see you guys coming together and creating something that will hopefully hit, the masses and get more people into understanding it.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It's more the fact that, I really do believe that, we were all meant to cross paths. All these things that happen, we're all part of the bigger jigsaw puzzle, and we're just the pieces, and we all go together to make the final, picture of what's happening, which is, the more and more people are waking up, obviously with what's happening in the world, we can't go to conferences and things like that, which is a shame, and it'll change. You can do online conferences and things, but when you go to these conferences now, I've noticed the change in people that are actually going to them. Go back a few years and literally, whether you call it tinfoil hat people, we laugh, don't we, like it at stuff like that, but now it's more of your broader, people that are going to them, people that are waking up to you know, looking for the answers just like we did, you know, and people before us. And it's how you do it. You've got to find the truth yourself. You've got to research. Everything I find, I'm the first person to say to everyone, don't take my word for it. Go online, you know, go and read the books, you've got to get your own truth, you know. And then what you do with it is up to you. You can pass it on to somebody, and what they do with it is up to them. And like, you know, your podcast, you know, your show, it's the same. It puts that message out. It makes the spark, you know. I'll say something, you'll say something. Somebody listening will go, yeah, okay, right. I'll take a note of that. And just like your father took you on the Skywatch, that was the start, you know. And you know, I go outside all the time. Here in the UK, we haven't got the skies like you have, the clear skies. The summer it's great, but the winter is basically not very good to go out and skywatch. Yeah, but I've got infrared cameras and everything. I can go out in 10 minutes and see about 4.
Yeah,
you know, that will come over. You literally, and they'll cross paths and they'll power
and they
up.
race.
Like that.
Seeing them racing.
They'll race, and yeah, and they'll come in formation, and it's amazing. You think like that, you know, and that's like 10 minutes just being outside.
Yeah.
You know, so if you go to, I encourage anyone, if they get the chance, to go to ECETI. You know, you've got obviously ECETI near Mount Adams with James Gilliland, and then obviously Peter's ECETI Australia. I think it is Greg Sullivan, who's ECETI Japan, I think. But yeah, if you encourage anybody, if you get the chance to go round, you know, with a group of people and have a sky watch, you know, again, in the book, I've given some basic things for people if they want to go on a sky watch. If you read it, it's how to sit in a formation all facing outwards, you know, clear your minds, you know, how to get in the right frame of mind for a sky watch, the things to take with you, you know, to use, what to look for, what to eliminate. So you can eliminate satellites, you know, there's free apps out, trackers out there where you can track aircraft as well as satellites, so you know you can eliminate them, you know, from what you're seeing. You know, there's a lot of things that you can do to make enjoyable, as in, you know, you're going to see what you're going to see is a UFO, you know, or a craft of some kind. So yeah.
I always
where were we up to on the sea?
Yeah, where were we? I was just going to say, I always say that it's one of those things that I think once you see one, they're everywhere. It's almost like once you come into frequency, then it becomes more regular occurrence. Yeah, but let's go back to the categories.
Yeah. We're C5, I think we'd said. So that was so that's bilateral contact with ETs. So basically that's audible. So whether it's a form of communication, so that can be initiated either by yourself or by the ET. So it's a two-way thing. Again, this is very broad, as in, but it gives you a basic. So, you know, it's basically the communication side of it, you know. C6 is where, it goes on to a bit more naughty, really, where the inhabitants, they cause injury or death to a human. So, I mean, and this has been, you know, I'm trying to think who's done it. There's a good researcher here in the UK, Richard D. Hull, on richplanet.com. If anybody goes on that website, he does some fantastic documentaries, all free, you know. But he's actually done one on military where he speaks to military people who were involved in craft retrieval. And again, in relation to where basically on this craft that was retrieved, they found body parts, human body parts. So again, whether it was caused death, I don't know, whether, but that's in relation to that one. And then the last, but is probably the most controversial, CE7, is which a human and extraterrestrial mate, so sexual intercourse or artificial insemination, and that's to produce a hybrid being, which again is what people are talking about now. Again, these things I find these things, you'll close one door and it opens another 5. You explain something and it just goes off, and that was really where I come up with the book, the Ufology umbrella, as in ufology umbrella, as in everything cascading off all the different categories, abductions, sightings, that type of thing. So that's a basic rundown of 1 to 7. And then in the book, I've tried to put cases to that 1 to 7. So I'll give you cases, where there's sighting by, President Carter, where there's UFO followed this helicopter and, things like that. And then I'll actually put categories to them. So
that's so fantastic that you can, it's really quite practical, isn't it? And it sort of states it very, very clearly so that people can get their head around it. And like, as you said, it's just people like yourself that were trying to work through, what is this, what's happening, and putting in the legwork to create some sort of a pathway for other people is just brilliant. But I'm curious to know, do you think that the categories are going to go even higher? Because obviously as a collective, there's a lot of evolution that's happening at quite a rapid pace. I mean, the mind just boggles, doesn't it, at what can come beyond?
Yeah, definitely. I don't see why it can't go any further. It's not ceiling at 7. If something else, comes into play within the field, then why not? It's got to be there, because it's another category that people have got to understand. You can't put it under, sweep it under the carpet. It's got to be there for people to actually put a category, pigeonhole it to something that's happened. I don't know what else you could add, but like I said,
my mind's starting to
1 to 7 does cover quite a bit anyway.
Yeah. It's very comprehensive.
But to me, it's not final. It's not a final closed off list. It can certainly extend. I'm sure it will. I'm sure, disclosures coming. I say disclosures coming, I think it's already here. Great. Just look around, yourself, things have happened to me. I don't care what anybody says, it's already here. But then if you're looking at the masses of people that have not woken up yet, as we say, they've got to really understand what's coming. When it comes, it's gonna, you can't put the worms back in the what's the saying? I've lost it now. You basically, once you've opened,
you can't go back.
The disclosure, no, it's not going to go back in, and then it's all great. People will go, people will lose the plot. People will certainly lose the plot. I'm sure they will. They couldn't handle things like that. You've got the religious side, and then you've also got people will start getting angry for the fact that why have we had petrol gas, when these craft are anti-gravity, free energy, why are we being paying for, all these things, commodities, and it just goes on. But, it's definitely going to come. It's definitely going to come.
Yeah. And I mean, it's really hard to say timelines. There has been such an acceleration, and it's so great to hear you talk about when you started to come back into your memories and being a catalyst here. I think 2014, I see with a lot of my clients around that time, or some people might say go back to say 2012, and there's sort of this acceleration. Are you seeing more and more people now starting to have, you know, higher level category contact than say what was happening, you know, 5-10 years ago? Is there an acceleration in people
Yeah,
coming forward?
yeah, definitely. Just through the people that are actually coming forward with the images for me to analyze. You know, I started doing it and posting it before I even had a Facebook page or anything. You know, I just went on like anybody else. I would look at images, I would analyze them like I do. You know, I literally approach every case the same. And then I would just post them on pages that I was involved in, you know, and then it sort of grew from there. And then I thought I better have my own Facebook page, you know, and then people can contact me there, and then I would go further again, and then I'd start analysing videos for people, because it's not just images, it's video, you know, and then from there I couldn't post them on Facebook, so I had to start a YouTube channel, you know, and see how it grows. It just gets out of hand, and then I never thought I'd write a book. I mean, at school, I was very good at English and things. I couldn't wait to leave school. And then I'm on my, you know, I've wrote chapters for other people in books, you know, approach me to do a chapter, you know, and I write every month for the Outer Limits magazine, you know, doing articles in there. I've had stuff put, you know, out worldwide. I just never thought. I mean, and now when I'm working on, you know, a case that basically I was brought up like anybody else, going to libraries, reading UFO books. Because when we were younger, you know, you went to a library to get your books. There was no internet. You used to get unexplained magazines. You know, Arthur C. Clarke, you know, had TV shows and, you know, those sort of things. And now we're spoiled, really, you know, the wealth of information. But one of the cases I was brought up on was Calvin's, you know, the Pascagoula incident. And then for me to be involved with Philip Mantle, and, you know, who's now my publisher and friend, you know, I'm working on the book with Calvin, this graphic novel, and we've gone through. I'm working with the writer in the States, Martin Powell, and he's generally wrote like Batman and Superman comics and things like that. So I've never done graphic novels, and like I showed you before, that, you know, the piece that I've done, like in part of different illustrations, like the being here that Calvin encountered, and I've been Skyping with Calvin, going through, you know, exactly what he saw and everything, and then literally going through. But the thing about Calvin's case, everybody knows about those beings with the protrusions from the head, you know. He actually called them the ugly one. That's what he called them. But when he was taken on board the craft, he had an interaction with a female ET. And again, nobody's ever seen anything of the female ET. They've probably heard about it when he's spoken about it and things like that. But I've actually Skyped with him, and we've been going through getting the detailed illustration I've done of the female ET. You know, so I've like the eyes, the nose, the mouth, the hair, you know, everything. And when he actually saw the illustration I'd done for him in the book, that people will see, he said, yeah, that was her. That was exactly who he had the interaction with. So, and I'm getting to do this with him, you know, I'm getting to do something on a case that I was reading in books as a kid, you know, and you just don't know what's around the corner. And then there's the other book, which I've got out, I think it's later this year, UFO Encounters, Up Close and Personal. And I don't even know why I haven't published it yet. I've contacted ufologists from all around the world, who have given me what it is, what I wanted to do with it. I wanted to ask people how they got into ufology. I wanted to, you know, another ufologist, did you have a sighting? Did you have an interaction? You know, and I've basically gone through Philip Mantle, you know, Malcolm Robinson, Bruce Maccabee, who I was brought up with, you know, who was the original godfather of analysing photographs. And he's actually given me his first scientific paper he wrote, which has never been published. And I've got that in the book. Peter Robbins, Mary Rodwell, Solaris Blue Raven, Steve Mera, I've even got Howard Hughes, you know, the list. I've got all kinds of people in there, you know. Mike Rogers, who was the driver for in the team for Travis Walton, when they went in for when Travis was abducted. I mean, it was all about Travis being abducted, but remember there was another few men in the truck who saw the UFO, and Mike was the leader of the team, and he drove off and then went back for Travis, but he'd been taken by then. I've even got Mike in there, you know, explaining what he saw out of the truck. You know, the different perspective of the case. It's not all about Travis. You know, there are other people involved. So yeah, that'll be out later this year as well.
Can't wait to get my hands on that. That sounds just such an incredible testimony and compiling of, like, you know, the greats of the greats, and just to, you know, I think it's perfect timing this year for me in particular. The intuitive push that I have been given is that, you know, disclosures, as you said, it is here. It's well and truly here. You've just got to look around. But this year to me had this certain feeling to it that you've got to get out there, you know, hence why I contacted you and other people, because I feel like we've all got to do our part in sort of preparing people for what's about to, you know, unravel. And so I think it's just magnificent in the work that you're doing, you know, and it would be such a incredible feeling that the people that you've admired and looked up to, and now you get to collaborate with them, and, you know, it's incredible. You really just don't know what's around the corner, do you?
No, you don't. You know, and I've had things that have happened. You know, there's other things that I will bring out later. There was an incident. There was where there was a grey in my house. After it was just after the first Gulf War. I won't go into much detail now because I think I'll probably write more about it. It's still part of my journey, you know, to bring out. But basically, it was a grey in my house, and I can still remember it now. And then there's other things, a lot of missing time and things. I mean, there was an incident that happened a few years back where I live. There's a reservoir around the back, and I've got two dogs, and I try to walk them every day if I can. And even if I can't, I'll go on a quick 20-minute, you know, like walk at this reservoir just to walk them. And on this occasion, I can remember leaving the house as normal, everything, two dogs, went up, weather was fine. And I remember at the top of the reservoir, I heard a Chinook helicopter, which is a military twin rotor helicopter. And I can remember the sound, you know, because I've worked on them. And, you know, it's a very distinct sound. And I can remember, thought, oh, I'll film this. I had my camera phone on me, so I got it out, and I can remember filming this Chinook, and it flew right over my head. I mean, it was low, and it didn't bother me because I've seen it all before, but it had gone. I can remember filming it and then carrying on, put my phone away, carried on with the walk. When I got back home, my wife and my son said, "Where have you been?" And I said, "Oh, I've just been up the thing, you know, 20 minutes, walked it." I think an hour and a half had passed. And I said, "Well, no, I've just been gone 20. I really thought I'd been gone 20 minutes. And I just thought, well, you know, whatever. And later on, when I sat down, I thought, well, I filmed that Chinook coming over, you know, and that, anyway, I can remember filming it. I really do remember filming it. And when I actually I've still got the footage now. And when you get the camera out, all there is a picture of a video of my feet, and you can hear the Chinook helicopter flying off in the distance, and that's it. And that's just one of many things that have happened, you know.
So you really have quite a story to share by the sounds of it, with your own sort of personal interactions. Where are you at with like piecing that together? Have you done work with Mary Rodwell, or sort of, you don't have to go into
I've
it?
still got to, yeah, she was over in the UK about 2 years ago in Hull for the Outer Limits magazine conference, and she was a speaker there. And I mean, I've seen everything Mary's done, you know, gone through, and it's just like everybody else, you know. She's an amazing woman for what she does. And I actually nabbed her at the thing, and I said, I need a regression session off you. I need something, you know. There's things that have happened, and I just want answers. I want, you know, to find out. And she agreed, and you know, everything was great, but we just haven't got round to it. There's not enough hours in the day, and I'm always doing somebody else's analysis of photographs, or you know. And I've just started making these 3D models, you know, for people of figures of ETs and stuff like that. So I don't have enough hours, and I've got a full-time job as well. So
how do you do everything?
I don't know. I don't know.
Nothing of time.
Yeah. And then obviously with those, I also get Philip Mantle through his publishing company, Flying Disc Press. He's always contacting me to do book covers for people. So I've done book covers for, I've probably done about 20 already for people. They vary. They go back to Paul Sinclair. I did his second book for him, you know, Truth Proof, in the UK. And then there's a few more out. Philip's always bringing them out all the time, and I'll do them. I think I've got another one that's due out, but again, when I get 5 minutes, I'll sit down and have a doodle. So.
Sounds like you have a great attention to detail in the artistry that you do. And you know, do you think that has to do with like perhaps what you're yet to piece together? Is that sort of something that comes through you?
Definitely. I mean, a funny thing you say about that with detail is I've always been like that with art, and you know, right the way through, even school, you know, being the first person to ever at the school, you know, to use an ink pen, but people are still on pencils, you know, that sort of thing. And then one thing I remember that sticks out, and I only when I started going to the crop circles in Wiltshire in the UK here, I used to go down there and, you know, check them out and everything. And I don't know if you know, with crop circles, it's about nodes. Nodes comes in mathematics. So nodes are basically, you know, on the stems of the corn or whatever that's been flattened in the crop circle. When they're actually folded flat, because that's basically they're folded. They're not forced down. Some sort of energy forces those flat. But what it does, it doesn't break the stem halfway down. You've got like little knuckles, which are basically called nodes. And what they do, they fold them down so they're not actually broke. So the crop still grows. It's still alive. You know, it's not been actually
not damaged,
killed. You know, damaged. And long story short, with that, when I was at school, and I must have been about 12, 13 years old, maybe, we did maths, and the subject was nodes, mathematics nodes. And to this day, I still can't fathom out how I knew all the different nodes. I can remember the teacher being at the front with the class, actually going through them, and people scratching their heads going, what the hell are nodes? And I was just answer. And I went up to the teacher and said, and he looking at me as if to say, are you cheating, or, because I would just, everything was right. And I thought, how do I know this? And to this day, I still don't know, but now I do know.
Yeah.
It's to do with the crop circles. So again, it's part of, it's just connecting. You've got to connect things up together.
It's a big part of the journey, isn't it? And you start to, the further along you go, the more information you come across, the more interviews you watch, all that, it really helps to compile and put things together for your own story. And I think that's the great thing about sharing, really, is it just helps people in their own process. So,
well, you never stop learning.
No.
I'd beg to differ anybody that says they know everything. They don't.
Right.
They don't. Even Pete says it. Pete, when I speak with him, and he says, something's happened, and he's scratching his head, and why has that happened? Well, it's happened for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
And even down to the analysing of photographs, it's something that's sort of been developed that I've done, and I've probably got better at it, But if I don't know what it is, a lot of people will send a photograph to me and say, well, when I took the photograph, there was nothing there. I was taking of scenery, mountains, a beach, wherever it was. There was nothing there. And when they got home and they looked at the photographs, there's a UFO in the photograph. And they said there was nothing there when I took the photograph. Well, all it is the frequency. It's the frequency that the camera can see it and you can't, because the human being can only see in a small corridor of the electromagnetic spectrum. So outside of your visual sight, you can't see anything. You're probably going into radio waves and microwaves and infrared that you can't see.
Mm-hmm.
But the camera can see these things and it captures them. So yeah, there's a lot of things, and I really do believe it's to do with frequency.
Yeah, it's funny because just through this conversation, you're triggering so many things. When I was in high school, I took up photography. I am terrible at photography. It's not my thing at all. But we had to go out and do an assignment, and I went out at night, and every single photograph came back was completely full of orbs, every single one of them. and my teacher was like, and I was like, it's always happened to me, ever since I was a kid. Like, I could be taking a photograph of something and there's just orbs everywhere. Someone else beside me will take a photograph and it's just normal.
Nothing.
So, yeah, nothing there. That's sort of been proven time and time again. And obviously now I look back and I go, okay, well, it makes sense. But
that's why, yeah.
Yeah.
I've got an image somewhere I've got thousands of photographs in archives, but the one of an ET, and it's orbs that are manifested into a lion being. So they're basically, if I can dig it out, I'll send it you. And basically what it is, if you go on my Facebook page and put lion being in there, you might see the photograph. And what it is, they were like yourself, they were in an open field on a CE5, so it's contact and everything set up, and they photographed the orbs and they manifested themselves into, and when you were going to the facial features were of a lioness. So it's amazing photograph.
I can't wait to see that. That sounds stunning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, when I started having my own contact, I say conscious contact because I realized it'd be happening all my life unconsciously. But I live in in the mountains, and I think it's a bit of a hot spot here. And I was at a party late. It always happens late at night, and I had just arrived, but there was a feeling in the air, like there was this very high energy. You could feel it, you know, it's tangible. And I arrived, and all of a sudden I looked up, and it wasn't that far away, and there was this massive, like electric green, almost orb shape. It was circular, and it was just slowly dropping down. And I just went, because I could feel the frequency of it. And everyone in the party turned and they looked, and they're like, oh my God, what's that? And I was like, I don't know, but it was amazing, you know. And they're just sort of just gently, you know, and I've seen that's the sort of craft that I think they're interdimensional, because I think they're actually going in. That's my interpretation of it. I think they're actually going in the ground, or going through the earth.
Back to their dimension,
but
or to wherever, That's another. Well, you say that's another really good way. People say they see blurs, you know, or you know, it's very hazy, or again, that's where it's bleeding through from another dimension, you know, in the same space. And like you said before, you know, if you look at yourself as a radio and the frequencies around you, and all you know, owning the same space, and it's exactly the same with beings. You know, you could have one standing right next to you now, and you know, the only way you would probably know is through a feeling or something, but you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's great to talk about these things, because people are becoming more sensitive and in tune with that, as the frequency on the planet is increasing and rising, and we're having more contact. And to, you know, I'm big about normalizing these experiences, so that, you know, when people do start to come into that they can have a, you know, I don't want to say a smoother journey, but maybe a more pathway of having context.
Transition,
Yeah. So, oh my goodness. One last question that I have for you, because I could talk to you all day about this. I know you're a busy man, but are there certain hotspots around the world? Do you find that, you know, people that contact you with footage, it comes from, you know, are there certain high energy places, or is it just sort of can be from anywhere? But do you see trends in where people have sightings or visitations?
I do see there are trends. There are hot spots, you know, obvious ones like Mount Shasta and Ysetty, Mount Adams, you know, over here in the UK, we've got North Wales, you've got Llandudno, you know, but again, I think it's also linked to ley lines, which are, you know, the powers lines. Where I actually live now is an old village. You know, the church and everything here in the village is literally in the Doomsday Book. It's that old, you know, and Kings have got a monastery, you know, here, where the old River Mersey used to come right up to us many years ago, you know. But it's a ley line. We live on a ley line. But I do think that's got a lot to do with it. People beg to differ, but you know, it's an opinion.
With that one,
I have a lot of sightings around here, So, and again, Llandudno is on a ley line. You know, it's through a bronze mine, and you know, there's a lot of things going in favour. And again, with, you know, hotspots, but then, you know, people ask me, "Oh, I've never seen a UFO," or I really do want to see a UFO," and I say the same thing to everybody: just go outside and ask. Just go outside and ask. It's that easy. It's not rocket science. It's not. Go outside, ask. If you're ready and you're open to seeing something, you will do. It's not you know, exclusive to you or me or Peter or anybody else. It's there. If you're ready, they'll show themselves. You know, and they always say, "Oh, well, I've never seen one. I want to see one," and I'll say the same thing. Just do that. It's really simple. Really simple.
I love how you break it down. So nature, and I agree
So
with
like you just said, yeah, with hotspots, if you're ready, where you live is a hotspot because
yeah,
you will see it.
yeah.
So
Anywhere's a hotspot.
yeah, yeah,
It's really about interacting with your own energy and consciousnesses,
yeah,
and readiness and intention. Fear
yeah.
can block it, so it's, you know, I think that can
Well,
be
fear, because they can pick up on fear. They if they, well, you're not ready. You
exactly.
know, you've and they don't want to scare the GBs out of you. They want to interact with you. They want to be your friend, you know. And then, you know, it's slowly, isn't it? It's everyone's at a different pace. You know, some people take a lifetime to have an interaction or something or truth, or other people it can be instant. It can be, you know, an accident, a near-death experience. Anything can trigger something that basically, again, you know, I say a lot of musicians have sightings. You know, only the fact you see a lot of famous musicians because they come forward and say it. But I think every musician is the same. If you can play an instrument or read music, you are on a different frequency. You're already on a different, you know, I'm useless at music and stuff, but you know, my father can read music, you know.
It comes in
These
different
are
ways. I mean,
things
you're
that,
an artist, so you know that's your.
yeah, everyone's, you know.
Oh, it's all right. I think we just
You're
glitched
right.
out, but yeah, we're back.
Oh, I always get that as well. I'm surprised
Technology.
it's still going. It hasn't,
I know,
yeah,
right?
cut off.
Well, Jason, I just want to thank you so much for your wealth of knowledge and expertise and all the work that you've done and continue to do for this community and for humanity. I think it's a great service. And you know, as I said before, I will put all the links in the description box so you can get on and follow Jason on his social media platforms and have a look at the amazing work that he's doing and stay in the loop so you can get on to the release of the book and the documentary this year. And yeah, just massive thank you to everyone for watching. I hope that you've got something out of this. And yeah, just thank you again, Jason.
No, it's been my pleasure. Enjoyable to talk about these things, and like you say, hopefully we've triggered something for somebody else as part of their journey, so they can go forward and enlighten somebody else.
Yeah, that's how it works, isn't it? We just spark the light for another. Yeah, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Till next time, keep your eyes up in the sky. See you. Bye.